Hello and welcome to Best Top 5. I'm Best Guy. Today we're going to be talking about the top worst movies of 2017. We're into 2018, but 2017 left a lot of damage with a lot of shitty movies, and I actually sat down and saw some of these horrible movies. At number 5, we have Michael Bay's mega piece of shit, catastrophic, horrendous Transformers: The Last Night. I've seen most of the Transformers movies. Actually, I've seen all of them. I sat down and watched them back to back. I don't know why I did that. Don't do that. That's going to cause a big headache and a lot of seizures. It will, man. You're right. A lot of people say Michael Bay's a hack. I don't consider him a hack. He's done some pretty good movies like The Rock, The Island, and if you haven't seen 13 Hours, which is one of his most recent films, it's actually pretty decent. I think he does make good movies when he's restrained. But when you give him a lot of money and a lot of explosions, the guy goes apeshit. So I saw all these movies, and the first Transformers movie was okay. It's a pretty decent action blockbuster movie. There's nothing great about it, but it's watchable. Each sequel got progressively longer, progressively worse, and each time I was watching each sequel, for some weird reason, I felt like wanting to take a shit, and I couldn't because I'm like, oh crap, I'm here watching this movie, and what do I do? I stay here and watch it, or I take a shit? And most of the time, I would just go and take a shit so I can just miss the rest of the movie. But Transformers: The Last Night, I gotta say, is probably the equivalent to dog shit. I really hated this movie. For some odd reason, Michael Bay chose the magnificent idea of shooting in different aspect ratios. He shot it with traditional film cameras, and he also used the IMAX cameras. So it goes from 235, 185, 177. So you'll have a sequence where Mark Wahlberg is talking to Anthony Hopkins, who's standing up, and sitting down next to him, a couple of feet apart, is the female lead. So you'll have Mark Wahlberg say a whole bunch of expositional dialogue in 235, Anthony Hopkins responds in 185, and the girl who has no fucking clue what's going on is in 177, and it will constantly go back and forth. And when you watch the action sequences, you have no fucking clue what's going on. Aside from the explosions and the craziness that goes on in a Michael Bay movie, the editing is absurd, the storyline is nonsense. All the movies usually have a lot of expositional dialogue. This one's filled with so much, it doesn't save the movie at all. Avoid it. One of the worst movies I saw in 2017. On to number 4 is a movie that was in theaters for a little bit. It was a limited release. And I saw this movie only because of Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's me, I'm back, in the big screen. For literally only 5 minutes. This movie was awful. It's called Killing Gunther. I saw the trailer and said, oh, this looks like a good fun time. Arnold's having a good time. And the premise of the movie is a bunch of people who are killers are on the hunt for Gunther, who is played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's this lead assassin. And they want to kill him for a specific reason. I don't remember what it was. This is how forgettable the movie is. You would think that Arnold's in the movie for most of it from the trailers, but no. He's actually only in the first 2 minutes. The first 2 minutes. It spreads out in a couple of scenes of a buddy double. They mention him a lot, and then you finally do see him in the last act in the 5 minutes of the film. There's only one good scene in this movie, and it's the ending where you see... don't worry, I'm not spoiling anything, this doesn't matter because this movie's garbage. It's a scene where Arnold is singing country music. He's doing an album of country music. That is actually a funny part of the movie. Everything else is so forced. I'm a big fan of Arnold. I think he makes a lot of cool movies. He's getting older, but I still enjoy the movies that he makes. I think he did pretty good with Last Stand that he made a couple of years back. And seeing him now doing something so shitty and being in such a small role, it was just really, really bad. Number 3, if you thought Killing Gunther was bad, wait until I mention this movie. You like horror? Well, get ready to be horrified by my number 3. It's Leatherface. I'm not sure if this was released in theaters limitedly. I did not see it in theaters. I saw it on VOD. This was horrendous. This is supposed to take place before the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre from the 70s. So it's an origin story explaining how he became Leatherface. And I'll give it the positive note of being accurate to the 50s. It looks like the 50s, but no one behaves like the time period. Everyone behaves very much like a modern people. The way they talk, the way they move, it just feels very modern. The way they represent Leatherface is very similar to how they represented him in the 2013 Texas Chainsaw movie. They both are like anti-heroes. They're not villains anymore. You're like, oh, look at this guy, he's misunderstood, he's complex, and it just comes off very stupid and very pretentious. Whereas the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you believe some of the realism and the grittiness. Here, it's amped up with gore for no real reason. Like, you see the family from the original film, or at least the ancestors, along with younger versions, younger iterations from the original family, and they're killing people left and right, and it just does not fit with the original film at all. And aside from that, the dialogue is terrible. Avoid this movie at all costs. So number 2, this is a movie that I saw in theaters and it got me really, really upset. It's Ridley Scott's Alien Covenant, the sequel to Prometheus, that came out in 2012. This movie, I thought, is probably going to be just as bad as Prometheus. There's nothing that can be as bad as Prometheus. I know a lot of people like Prometheus. I thought it has great cinematography, but has a terrible script from, I think his name is Damon Lindelof. Did a terrible script with Prometheus. I don't know who wrote Alien Covenant, but it's actually worse than Prometheus. I thought it was an awful movie. There was a point where I was watching the movie and I actually wanted to leave. I just did not want to finish watching the movie. But I sat down, tortured myself, and what makes it so bad is the decisions that characters make. I mentioned this in another video about some of the worst movies I've seen, and the characters who arrive at this planet, they're supposed to be explorers or miners. I don't know what they were. They're not astronauts. They're just explorers, and they arrive in this planet, and they're not wearing any masks. They're not checking if there's any pathogens that might be deadly to the human body. They just land and start seeing what's up. Some guy lights up a cigarette, starts polluting the planet. Ridley Scott has made a comment saying that it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be these people who have no clue. Like, what the fuck are they flying a spaceship in the future? This makes no fucking sense. I was rooting for the aliens with the whole goddamn movie. This was like a really shitty slasher movie in space. Ridley Scott has made comments about the poor choices Kathleen Kennedy has made with some of the directors, but I think he has no right in saying anything, because just because he makes a lot of movies does not mean he's making a lot of quality movies. So, and this is one of those movies that is just not quality. It is really just dog shit. But what can be worse than Alien Covenant? Well, there's a movie that I did not see in theaters. I saw it on DVD at home. And I think this is a bad movie. Not just bad, but it's funny bad in some sense. But it is just horrendous. I have no clue how this movie was made and also released in theaters. So this feels like a movie that would be released straight to video. And this movie is The Byebye Man. You don't know what The Byebye Man is? Well, you're one of the lucky ones that didn't hear about this movie. The Byebye Man is a horror film that was released in 2017, and it's a group of kids who move into a house, and there's a legend about a man that does, I don't know, nothing. He just points at you and curses you when you say his name, The Byebye Man. It's poorly written. It has some of the most laughable CGI. It looks like something from PlayStation 2. It's up there competing with terrible CGI with Justice League as some of the worst CGI I've seen in a theatrical film. These are the worst movies I saw in 2017. I'm pretty sure there's other terrible ones that were released either on VOD or straight to video. But let me know in the comments section down below, what was the worst movie you saw this year? Is there one that I missed? I'm pretty sure I missed a lot. I don't torture myself. I didn't see those movies like 50 Shades of Freed and the Emoji Movie, which I heard were terrible. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time. Oh, and make sure to like and subscribe. That thing that you're supposed to do at the end of each video.